Think that started? Yes, yeah. So that started recording. Great. So, yeah, thanks for joining us. Thanks for finding time to do it. Yeah, just to say for those, you can have your microphones on. That's not a problem, because the whole point is an open discussion. But if you do have horrendous background noise, if you could just turn it off if somebody else is speaking, that'd be great. So I'll just kick things off. I actually know quite a few of the people on the call today in some way, but just for those who don't necessarily know me, so I am one of the area managers. At the minute I do the Southeast and technically the Southwest just for the minute. So I started as an auditor back in April 2014, the day of my birthday, my 18th birthday. I was one of those extra keen ones. I couldn't do a shift, like a kind of shift job like all my friends were doing, like in a pub or in a shop or anything, just because I had like caring responsibilities for my sister. So the part of the reason for me joining Serve Legal as an auditor was that kind of the flexibility meant that I could still actually earn a bit of money and get a bit of experience kind of in a job. And still make time for that, so I didn't have to kind of constantly be balancing the two, and obviously still have a bit of a social life, and you know, have the money to actually fund that as well. So that was kind of in the run up to me before going off to uni. So I was in Manchester back then, and then I went to Bath for university that year, and there I struggled a bit more because I didn't have a car, and Bath, for those who know it, isn't a great place for public transport and things, but I did what I could and made use of kind of walking and cycling, and what public transport there was. I remember one really good thing about doing audits in Bath was that we really didn't have many people there, and it was just when we started doing online audits, like home delivery audits, and I got a phone call when I was on the train down to Bath for my freshers week. Like, I brought all my stuff down on the train, like, and I was all nervous, and then I got a phone call from Seth, for those who know him, asking me if I could do a £60 free grocery shop as long as some of it contained alcohol, and I was like, for my university address that I just put in onto my profile. So I was like, oh my god, this is great. Generally it was a little bit more limited where I was, but you know, I did a fair bit of work, and when I could, I would help out down in Bath or when I was back in Manchester. For me, the advantage of kind of doing Serve Legal alongside university and when I was back home was then that I could like join sports teams and get involved in the SU, taking on roles there, and setting up a Northern Society at the university and things like that. So, you know, really be able to make the most of those extra things that, you know, for those of you who might have experienced already, can be the difference between, you know, getting placements, getting jobs and things at the end. The other thing that I probably overlooked a little bit was actually how much value Serve Legal itself could have had, and what I could have made more out of about the fact that I'd chosen to do a casual job rather than the kind of jobs that my friends had, which was, as I say, working in a pub, working in a shop. And that's not to say that those aren't valuable. It's just that I thought those were the only jobs that people would be interested in on a CV. Actually, when it did come to interviews and writing my CV, where I did talk about Serve Legal, it was actually a massive benefit because, and you know, I say Serve Legal, I do just mean kind of casual-based work in general, because actually you're the one picking when you work, so I feel like it actually had a better impact or a better reflection on my like work ethic and things, and so, but that wasn't something that I'd appreciated at the time. I can take a little quote from how I described my job as Serve Legal mystery shopper on my CV, which was, the skills were observance and proficiency at providing detailed levels of description via written communication forms, logistical planning and time management due to self-navigating in unfamiliar areas, often having several different visits within one time frame or without a car. So I'm sure experiences that you can all kind of think about, and I'm not necessarily saying that that's the best way to describe it whatsoever, but kind of when we come on to discuss later, like, you know, it'd be really interesting to hear your thoughts on like how do you at the minute kind of describe the auditor role on your CV, and like what kind of skills and things do you think that you could really kind of shout about for the sake of other auditors as well? So I won't carry on boring you with my life story for too much longer, but just a couple extra things. So my first boss, so I went into recruitment as my first graduate job, so didn't go straight into my current role in Serve Legal. My boss a couple months in kind of made some reference to mystery shopping and said, oh, Helen will know something about that. And I just couldn't remember when I must have brought that up in conversation. He said he remembered it from my job interview, that I'd talked about it at the time. And I did remember I'd used the example of how when I had to demonstrate an example of commitment and reliability, I'd said about how my area manager rang me up on a Saturday evening, like really panicking because he needed to get someone to Burnley to do a pub ID test. So I got my mum to drive me. It's like, for those who know, Salford to Burnley, isn't it? It's quite a distance. I'd used that example, and he'd found it like really interesting. He'd asked me a bit about it at the time. That shows that was 4 or 5 months or so from one interview that he probably ran with loads of different undergrads trying to get that job. But he'd remembered the fact that I was a mystery shopper, and for me that really shows something about actually the value in having a job that's a bit different as well. So do kind of use that in examples as well. So just to kind of reiterate, my kind of main thing, like reflecting back, is that the kind of a key difference between the normal types of jobs that students do and kind of Serve Legal or other kind of casual jobs is the fact that actually every time you do some work, that's you asking for work, that's you wanting it, and anything that you've done, it does actually reflect directly on your work ethic. It's not just, well, I did a shift that I was asked to do because it's in my contract that I had to do those hours. Once again, not saying that those roles don't have value as well, because they absolutely do, but if you're trying to kind of sell the role, it does have its own unique points that can really, that can really show qualities in you that possibly some other roles actually can't. Anyway, so that's enough about me. So I wanted to just throw it to you guys, just kind of chime in as and when, and if 2 people speak at once, I'll pick someone and things, so don't hold back. Did any of you do any other, or do you at the minute, do any other casual jobs, first of all? So like similar to Serve Legal, where it's not necessarily kind of rotated hours of anything?
Yeah, I do.
All right, what is it?
So I'm in St Andrews at the moment, and they've got basically the equivalent of Deliveroo, but it's called EcoEat. So I'm a rider for that as well.
Oh, right, okay. And how do you find that?
I mean, it's got the exact same benefits as Serve Legal, with the flexibility, especially with like going up in university, like as it gets harder. With benefits like that, and I really enjoy it because it's exercise as well. Similarly with Serve Legal, like walking around the audits, I'm cycling around to do the delivery, so there's that benefit as well.
Oh, great. Just in case you haven't heard, are you aware of our cycling mileage that we pay?
Yeah, no, I was, but actually when I did it last year, everything's so far from St Andrews, I actually had to drive.
Oh,
but the ones I didn't walk,
Fair enough. Just wanted to make sure, because we realise that we don't shout about it kind of enough, and want to make sure that anyone on a bike knows about the cycling mileage benefits they can get. No, that's really good. So how did you find kind of balancing those 2 things? And like, was there anything in the kind of hours involved? Like, I imagine the kind of delivery cycling is more in the evening. Serve Legal stuff might have been more kind of during the day. Was there a preference, or did you find that just the 2 of them kind of worked quite nicely together anyway? Or
the 2 worked really nicely because of the flexibility. So with Serve Legal, as I said, I had to drive. So what I'd do is I'd have like a long list of them, and I usually did it on a Friday, and I'd spend the whole day and just drive between each audit, because they were usually quite far from me. So I'd do it all in one day, but with the delivery, I can do it for just an hour. and much easier. But with Serve Legal, that was a bit more difficult. But it was good to have both those two options of income, and then like which worked better that day. Like it was really, really good.
Yeah, and I guess it would be quite hard possibly to do a kind of part-time, like more standard part-time job, and the Deliveroo, not Deliveroo, it's the
Eco Eats
kind of delivery riding in kind of quite such complementary ways, and the same probably with Serve Legal and doing that. But yeah, the two of them working well together. Was there anyone else had any kind of other experience of casual work or just kind of part-time work as well, kind of with other roles?
I did have a.
Yes, I do.
Sorry.
So we'll go to Callum first and then up to Henry.
No worries. Sorry, Henry. I used to be like a freelance stock auditor. So I worked for this bunker company that does like outsource solutions. So I used to go into different supermarket sort of clients and do like stock takes, either really late at night or really early in the morning when there's no customers about.
Oh, right, okay.
So it was
Nice.
an interesting job, actually. Yeah, it was. It's compared to Serve Legal. Obviously, like a Serve Legal, a lot of the kind of benefits and pays comes from the products you buy. So obviously for like this job, it was more cash. But the problem, the downfall were just so unsocial hours, and also generally further away the jobs were from my Serve Legal ones. Like I had to drive quite a lot further, and also you couldn't really get public transport if you wanted to because it's late at night or in the morning, like 5 a.m. or like 2 a.m. So like it's it definitely had its falls and its pros, but yeah, it was interesting. It was quite similar in its flexibility, but quite different in a lot of ways as well.
So is that another one where you could kind of pick the work that you wanted to do as and when?
Yeah, basically, yeah. It was a year contract, and you just have this website where they'd have like all the jobs that are going, and you just kind of pick and choose which one kind of first come, first served. But you would also, I think your area manager would generally tend to assign you some work as well. But you could also just say no if you wanted to.
Yeah.
They would probably get into contact with the more urgent ones and just say, do you want to do these? I'll be sure I'll free to assign them to you if you want to.
Okay. All right, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Nice one. And then Henry, what were you gonna add?
I currently work at a restaurant on a 0-hour contract, and also as a casual job, I work for my local council.
Oh, okay. So how do you find those?
I much prefer Serve Legal, to be honest, because there is a lot more flexibility, and they're not always long shifts, and you're not always talking to customers, that sort of thing. Whereas there's a lot of downtime whilst doing Serve Legal on the buses, etc., between audits. But I find that quite useful to be able to write up the reports whilst I'm travelling, so it's all effective, productive time.
Well, we'd like to hear that people like the downtime in between, because and obviously we're always conscious of people, especially traveling by public transport. It's that bit extra time, and it's time out of your day. But it's good to hear people making use of that time. I know I used to bring kind of papers that I needed to read at uni and stuff. Like I could download them on my phone and just do that in between. Oh, wish she's nodding along. He did the same, and things like that. So yeah, no, they definitely can make the most of that. I think especially for me when I was like living in halls, and sorry for those of you if you're in first year and the idea of being cramped in halls when not under lockdown is despicable that someone can moan about that. It can get a little bit intense, and it was quite nice actually being out on your own and things like that. So that's good to hear. Obviously, Henry can't actually do 18 plus audits just yet, so he's got that to look forward to. But it's good to know that you've enjoyed it so far. Don, what were you going to say?
Yeah, well, just adding to my sort of experience. So I used to work for a party company that was like self-employed technically, and that was very much you had control over how much you did and didn't do. It was very much a set sort of booking per booking basis, and then sort of left that as I moved to uni. But then I also sort of took on, I mean, it was full time, but it was part time at Tesco, so I was able to do both at the same time. in the morning, and then do the serve legal in the afternoon, and do that. And if it was becoming too much, you could have that control over how much you did and didn't do, and sort of balance out quite an intense full-time sort of thing with audits, which were a lot of downtime, as has been said, benefits of the products, namely the alcohol. Whoops, sorry. I don't know what's happened there.
You've got on there?
I don't know what's happened. Exactly. So I'll pass on to somebody else. Can't find the light.
Yeah, just on what you're saying though, I think that is really important that that people have the opportunity to kind of come out of to have that time off, and that it's not like booking holiday. You can just turn around to your area manager and say, look, I've got a busy week with coursework, particularly with for anyone, but student mental health kind of situations as well. We're really conscious that I am in particular that you do need that control over your time, and to stop kind of things getting too overwhelming and things. I think knowing that you can just say no to a bit of work and have some time off, I think is really valuable, especially at uni or just with the kind of things that 18, 19-year-olds have going on. Like, it is quite hard to plan ahead, so having that bit of flexibility can help. We do have more to say, sorry, Dom. I just thought I'd give you a breather.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I can talk for England. I won't. But it's just been a really good thing, and especially a lot of the what's the word? The sport things and the TV ones that we do. They're really good, very quick earners. So I was based in Liverpool, and one of the days I did a walking audit. It literally just an afternoon, 2 hours walking pub to pub, and that allowed me to rake in a lot of money for not a lot of work relatively. It was still good quality as always. And that's another thing as well. Like, that you are treated as adults. You are expected to go to that standard, but you're also treated as like by your age. So you're not, you're expected to be top standard, but when it comes to essentially, if there's little errors, there's that discussion in a mature way that's does tell you off sometimes if you miss something. But everybody makes mistakes, don't they? So like, if there's a lot to consider, which there is on audits, that's a really good thing I've developed, is that what's the word, like observational skills, noticing stuff that I never thought I could do, and perhaps in a lot of jobs you wouldn't get, because you'd just be doing the same thing over and over again. Whereas, we do that in the different audits, but actually it's very much in a personal environment where you can see everything that's going off, and you notice a lot more in real life. Just going into a normal shop, I just whip out my ID normally because I want to avoid the awkwardness that I get on audits, to be absolutely honest with you. But things like, queue lengths as well,
it never leaves you. I'll tell you, it never leaves you. I still do it now. Like, I'll go into a shop, and this good few years after auditing, and I'm so aware of it, and it always makes me giggle as well. Like, sometimes I've had it before where I'll get asked for ID, and then they'll say, because we have these people that check. Oh, they're the worst. I was like, don't tell them who my employers.
And you do get used to how things are done. And how things are processed, particularly things like lottery tickets, or how things are meant to be displayed. I never thought I know the layout of a pub TV so well. So there's that, and then there's also things like the home delivery. When you do so many of those, you do realise what makes a nice sort of delivery guy, and what makes a bit of a not a nasty one, but somebody who doesn't really care about your work. So by doing this, it doesn't just like allow you to explore your own area and what's around you. Certainly the university town, and then at home as well, allowed to explore that. But it also allows you to sort of have a lot more life experience through the job and through the different situations, not just the actual what you do, but sort of how you approach that. So the level of confidence, what you do, and how you adapt to if certain things happen. You've got that help, but a lot of it is sometimes improvisation. So those skills on the job, which you would not get anywhere else.
Great feedback. good to hear. Amicia, what were you going to say there?
Yeah, so in terms of like some of the pros of casual work, like with Serve Legal, I mean, it literally for me was one of the biggest things pushing me into my adult life. I've become so independent from it. So I mean, the biggest thing was the traveling, because I'm from London, and basically I've moved to Southampton for uni. And there was a lot of traveling to and fro. So firstly, I could actually slot in a lot of Serve Legal work just with my travel. And then eventually I ended up, some of my area managers would sometimes be like, oh, could you just pop over to the Isle of Wight for a bit? And I ended up doing trips to like some of the randomest places. And actually, it's just nice sometimes to get outside of your house or your flat and just have a bit of alone time. And I just take some work with me, sit on the bus or whatever, and do that. But then the other thing is when things were unexpected, like, for example, a missed train or a missed plane, it was quite a learning curve, just sorting out these things on the spot. I mean, there was one time I was in Guernsey and basically I'd missed the plane out, and because of the way I'd got the ticket, I literally almost got stranded there. Luckily, I managed to ring them up and sort it out, and it was quite an adventure. And then I realised that the alcohol I had on me from my audit, I couldn't take on the plane. So that was a lucky bus driver that day. But, you know, and it's things like pub, TV and auditing. I actually just walk everywhere because I can't drive. Sometimes I get my mum to, but, you know, she might get a bit irritated if I ask too often. But it's quite good exercise because I just run all the time, because the quicker you finish, you still get the same pay, basically. So I just run and treat that as my exercise. And you sort of get into habits as well. So it just speeds up the whole process. And then it really is quite easy money, because you can do your reports while you're traveling to and from the job. And also, I think it's just really nice being able to have that flexibility, definitely, which everyone's mentioned, because you choose when you want to work, how much you want to work, and where you want to work. And that's really key for me. Obviously, you don't mind doing like the odd urgent job and so on. But sometimes you can just say, OK, I've got a time on this day of the week. What have you got going? And your area managers, they're all really helpful, and they'll just give batches. So it's really easy to put, you know, batches are the easiest thing, because you can basically plan a whole route, cover everything. And then the planning side, that's another great thing, because the logistics and making sure you know where you're going for the day and what closes when, things like that are really, really important. And then just probably a final thing, you mentioned about other jobs. So I'm at university, and I'm one of our what we call student ambassadors, but I do really random jobs for that as well. So it might be directing people around one-way systems, or showing people where to go, doing open days and things like that. So it's very similar to Serve Legal in terms of availability of work. You just say what you want to do, where and when. So that's been really good. And then the funniest thing is I now work for a major supermarket that I used to audit all the time. And now whenever I have anyone asking to buy alcohol, cigarettes or lottery tickets, I'm on it. So I'll never ever be caught out, just because I know what happens if you do sell to someone underage.
If we ever see it said that the name badge was official, I'll be watching.
He might have like a side hobby.
No, that was really great feedback. Thanks for everyone. Really great to hear that kind of most of you like Serve Legal more than other jobs. Definitely. But I think it is good to have a mix, and it is definitely not something that we'd discourage anybody from having, is trying to do something else alongside Serve Legal. But the whole point, I guess, of this is to try and say that do casual jobs, because they're great, and they can kind of provide so many different opportunities. Another kind of key area that we want to find out about, obviously you've all mentioned kind of flexibility and of doing the work. Is there anything else that you've been able to kind of make time for, that you, whether it's alongside university for those who are there, or kind of other parts of your life, that you probably wouldn't have done had you had to kind of rely on a proper part-time job with set shifts in order to make some money? Jacob, you were straight up there, so let's go to you.
Yeah, so I'm part of a voluntary youth organisation. I've been for 6 years in January. And I know a lot of people who are also part of it in my age group have shift work. So a lot of the time they can't always turn up. They're trying to help the leaders, maybe run an activity for younger members. They find it difficult. Through having a casual job, I can really sort of make the time to fit my schedule there around Serve Legal. So it might be I usually try maybe work maybe 1 or 2 days a week, and then that gives me the flexibility on the days I'm not working to catch up with the administration, to maybe plan activities for my younger people, and it also really allows me to have that security of I'm doing something which I can make money, I can get some life experience, but I'm not wedded to a piece of paper that says I must work 9 to 5 every day and then miss out other opportunities. So I like it because I can help what I'm really passionate about in this youth organisation. I can help with the administration either on days I'm not working, or very recently through the online delivery audits, I can sit at home, crack out a lot of administration and help my leaders with that aspect or write an activity while still helping Serve Legal with the online aspect. So it's having that casual. At first, most people who say casual, there's a bit of a stigma with that, but it really gives me that flexibility to kind of help with my personal interests, as well as help sort of the greater good of society with the various things that we do through Serve Legal.
Yeah. And I'm sure, I don't doubt that your reasons for doing that are that you're just genuinely passionate for doing it, but don't underestimate how good that's going to look on your CV that you've done all of that as well. And to kind of it's great to hear that people are able to kind of take on those opportunities, not just for themselves and for their communities, but also knowing how much that's going to help them, that person in the future, time better spent and kind of skills better learned than you would be if you were kind of having to work all the time and miss out on them. Grace, what were you going to add just there?
I feel like I can't follow on from Jacob. It's so good. Like, mine's not, but I'll say it anyway. I'm really into hockey, and that's like a big part of my life at uni here. And a lot of my friends who do sport either struggle in fully participating in the sport and uni work and a part-time job, or like the other way around. But for me, I've not had to make that choice, which is amazing. Because of Serve Legal, I've been able to keep up with the hockey, which is quite often on the weekends when a part-time job would have been, and also work with Serve Legal. So it's just great to be able to have that balance, which I don't know anyone else who's able to achieve it because of the other types of work.
Yeah, great. I'm a hockey player as well, so good choice. But yeah, no, it's exactly the same for me. At uni, I think everyone just kind of has to. Other people at uni would have to kind of make a choice of it. And yeah, it's just so nice to not have to make that choice between what you want to do and being able to afford to do it. I guess so. Yeah, no, really good examples. Anybody else anything to add on that or? Oh, cool. Oh, sorry. Was that me on mute? Oh, yeah. Never mind.
No, I was just saying. Yes, I also do lots of volunteering with the Scouts, so that is a nice thing to fit into evenings, and also just during the day when you've just got the odd random thing to sort of organise for the next week or whatever. And I think the other thing is just literally socialising while at uni, because that is such a key thing. So like Grace's hockey or whatever, I love just going along to socials, and there may be alcohol involved, and some of it helps me get through some of my Serve Legal stash, but it's just great to be able to have that time to fit in around uni. And obviously the thing with the difference between uni and a full-time job is, with the job you can say 9 to 5 you're working and then you're done, quite frankly. And with uni you're constantly studying and independently studying, and you can just come home, see and you can also like plan your weeks. You can say how much time you're going to have, and also if it does become too much one week, the flexibility of Serve Legal's deadlines, for example, mean that you can actually just like postpone it by a week or whatever if needed. And it's a really good culture like that.
Good stuff. Yeah. No, it's great. I mean, I'm sure you all definitely the social side is just as important as well. Like, it's the kind of things that you can make time for. There might be sporting or volunteering, things like that. Kind of really impressive, but it definitely is important to be able to have time to kind of actually have a life as well. And I think definitely again, kind of my experience was it's always hard to kind of have the money to have a life and actually have the time to do one. And yeah, Serve Legal was kind of just about the right balance. Just to quick episode, I think we're kind of getting a bit close to time. So if anyone does need to dash off, don't worry about it. But I did want to ask: has anyone had any experience of kind of referring to Serve Legal in either their CV or a job interview, and kind of any kind of notable reactions or anything like that to it, or just kind of examples when you've used it in a job interview of some sort? Dominic? Do you want to hit us off?
Yeah, definitely. I used it in. I mean, am I allowed to say? Which I hadn't. I had to decline doing that one when I was offered it, but they just couldn't get over the fact that people do this, and people are out there keeping people on their toes. It was very much part of the training, and they were always like, "Oh yeah, well you probably know this." It's like, well, no, I just know like my side of things, the auditing side, and what to do. So that was very much a big thing, but it's there, it's at the top of my CV in the employment section, and in other interviews I have sort of raised it, and people do sort of raise eyebrows, and when you explain that it's actually like legal mystery shopping, they get quite excited. I don't know why.
Do they always think you're a spy? Like I always had like that's
Well,
no, they
are
used to
spies,
say
really.
that was a spy.
We're not spies, actual spies, but it's a form of doing that. But we are professionally, and we're doing it, for good reasons, and alcohol as well. It's a good thing to say you've done. People know the skills of mystery shopping are quite unique, so showing off about those or talking about them is only good.
I do think it's something not to be overlooked as well. Yeah, like there is a lot of people do appreciate the kind of the community benefits that these things are being regulated as well, and that particularly with the right people and the right environments. We've had an auditor who's going to be doing one of these actually tomorrow, and he went into the police after Serve Legal, and we actually get quite a few applicants that say that they're interested in kind of pursuing a legal profession of some sort, and actually how they kind of see it as being a kind of direct benefit. And while it's while we're not working for the police or anything like that, it is separate. Again, it's just kind of in the same kind of areas and similar skills as well, I guess, in terms of observations and things. And definitely not to be overlooked. So you go to, I think Jacob was up with his hand, and then Callum, and then Rishi. Jacob?
Thank you. Yeah, so at the moment, I'm currently part of the application process for a career. And part of that application process, one of the sort of tests, if you like, is the ability to read a brief and then come up with a plan of action, very similar to the job of Serve Legal. You'll get a passage we have to read, much like our briefings is for our jobs. And then you'll have to maybe, the one I did, had to work out how to get one side of this map to another using various walking. You've got certain time limitations. So although not directly through a job interview in where they asked me, I could use the skills which I've learned of being able to forensically read a brief, to be able to understand, okay, if I've got to get from A to B, which way is quickest, C to D, much like I would on a set of batches in my local town. So I very much found I felt a lot more confident and comfortable with a situation which may be unfamiliar for a lot of people who were also going for this job application. But because, although not directly the same, I wasn't necessarily actually doing it, I could use a lot of the skills I would be using in the brief reading and the planning aspects of the job in order to help further my skills in that area of my job application. So it's very useful to have that in what's a relatively simple, casual job. I'd be able to transfer those skills to a much wider and more in-depth situation.
Yeah, and I'm sure if that's one of the things that's involved in the process so far, the application process, I'm sure there'll be things about it in kind of an interview kind of down the line that you would be able to mention. And yeah, do try and take away any tips, and speak to me independently as well if you want about anything that you could kind of take from it to kind of jazz things up and make sure they're aware of kind of all the kind of skills that you've got that would be relevant. Go on, Callum.
Yeah, so before I went to university, I used to work for a big UK chain of small supermarkets. And then, unfortunately, they weren't flexible enough to let me get a transfer to where I moved to, Edinburgh, for university, because there just wasn't anything going that that had a small amount of hours. And I know from working for them before, they give you a base amount of hours, but you normally get at least double that. Like, we're not very good with hours, to be honest. And they're also not set shifts. Like, every week we just change. It could be anywhere from 6 a.m. starts to 10 p.m. finishes. So they didn't let me transfer to university. So that's when I got involved with legal. I got a job there. I took that right for university. And then in March, obviously coronavirus lockdown kind of happened. So I moved back home. And the place I used to work for, the supermarket, was hiring again for temporary staff because of coronavirus, as an increase in business. So I reapplied for them as a temporary member of staff, and the manager has since changed. So I kind of had to have an interview again, just as a kind of formality. And they were particularly interested in my sort of legal on my CV, because it was just something different they've never really seen before. And again, it's just something that these businesses who get tested by test purchasers are really interested in hearing about, because obviously they want to kind of try and wheedle out, what you might have done with their business before. And funnily enough, I did actually get asked to go into that shop by Serve Legal before I applied to work for them again. But I also had to say, sorry, I can't, because I used to work there. They all know me. But yeah, they're really interested. And I can actually read you on my CV what I had down under Serve Legal, if you like. So I had attending a variety of client sites throughout Scotland in order to conduct age-restricted sales / Channel 25 compliance checks by attending to purchase restricted products and making observations. After visits, I must write a comprehensive report on my observations. And it's funny because you kind of, like, when I do a job, you kind of think, it's just kind of buying alcohol and, seeing the BID. And a friend asked me, that's what I say to them. But when you actually think about the work that goes into it, you can definitely make it sound professional. And, you do actually kind of develop a lot of kind of key skills from it, especially in report writing. They're really interested, even if that's not relevant to the job you're going into. It's just something that's, really, really kind of transferable skill. And another transferable skills obviously are like just kind of customer facing skills. As an auditor, you are the customer, you're pretending to be a customer in a shop. So you then know how you want customers want to be treated based on how you've been treated. So, when I was applying to the job in the supermarket, they kind of knew that I'd been on one side of the counter and the other one's been the other side of the counter. I kind of know what I'm doing with that. So they definitely quite like that on my CV.
For sure. Great stuff. Great. Definitely. Again, really good points to be made, and I do think, it will stand out, like, more so than kind of other jobs that you might have access to on a part-time basis. If you hear about like how most CVs get read for 6 seconds or something like that, I think so that's quite depressing stat, considering how much time you change all the wording and stuff on it. But yeah, like, having those little kind of bursts that might catch someone's eye, really does go some way. But yeah, great example. Rashid, go on. Oh, did you mean to? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's such a key thing about the work Serve Legal does, which is the uniqueness of the visits and the variety. I mean, I've once had to do a sunbed audit, so that was quite funny because I had to go in and get this suntan.
Yeah.
It's not still on. But it's just going into those bizarre situations. Some like that, and then nightclubs and things that you never really have expected. When I was 17, I wouldn't have thought, I'll go into something like Serve Legal's work. But then it's things like traveling at that time, trying to work out your way around. And I mean, all the shops near me in Southampton probably think I'm an alcoholic, but now I know every single pub and street, and just I know my way around, and I use so much public transport that we'll be going somewhere, and because of the speed with which you might have to think about maybe getting to a different place to get there before the next hourly bus or train, you sort of just learn all these things off by heart. And the other key thing, as you mentioned about observation skills, is the accuracy of those observations. And just, you know, when you're in a store or any client's facilities, you can't really like look at your phone to try and write everything down all the time because it can appear really awkward. So it's just using your memory, your observation skills, and all of that is really beneficial. And it's just been so handy in later life. The other thing is the sort of community of Serve Legal. I know we've got like a Facebook group where we've met loads of different auditors and had activities that have kept us busy in lockdown. And I've then made lots of referrals since because I'm now 20, so I can't do any of the age restricted stuff. But my brother does that, and he's taken that to uni, and he's getting him just as involved, which is quite nice to see. But yeah, I think it's a great thing.
Great stuff. Yeah, I think you know, when saying about like it might have been more Callum's point really actually, but you know, in terms of writing out your reports, particularly if you kind of, you know, talk about it in interviews and have to kind of use an example of, you know, writing up something formal, you know, do use the fact that those are read by the head of compliance at, you know, kind of insert company name, you know, that they're read by quite high up people in companies. Like you would hear from your area manager if they're not of a good enough standard, and if they're not high quality, and you know, that's why we have things about like grammar and spelling and things like that, obviously on that basis. But you know, it is quite an important piece of a report. You're not just writing that for us, you're writing it for that client of ours. We check over it before we send it off, but you know, ultimately they are reading your words. So you know, it is that yeah, definitely shouldn't be overlooked. Nice one. So you've all said like really great things, and it's so nice to hear great experiences about Serve Legal and other workplaces as well, and just general experience of casual work. But we you know, we do want some feedback as well. So does anybody have any kind of suggestions of how we could kind of make the offering to young people, particularly because obviously the kind of point of this is making it a more an accessible thing for young people to do in particular, and that's the point of the Power of Youth week that this is kind of part of. Yeah, anything that we could kind of do more of or do less of to kind of encourage that? Go on, Henry.
I think maybe a bit more information about what Serve Legal actually does, because when I wasn't really sure what actually happened after I submitted my reports or anything. I wasn't sure whether that person would be fired or anything. But having done a bit more with Serve Legal, I've realised that's more training, giving the clients training rather than punishment. So maybe that could be a bit more clearly communicated when people first sign up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's a kind of feedback that we have had in the past, I think, as well, and yeah, probably haven't acted on quite as much, and you know, and it's a completely reasonable thing to kind of be not necessarily concerned by, but you know, kind of want a bit of kind of reassurance in some way, you know, for your own safety as well, because you know, you are going into these places and you don't like the idea that they might have your face on CCTV and have a vengeance. So but yeah, kind of hopefully that is clear now, that you know, it doesn't have kind of dire consequences for staff members. So it's good to know that you know that, but it could definitely be putting people off from applying, particularly people who maybe have high levels of anxiety and things like that. You know, definitely something that we need to kind of consider. I think Jacob was next up with his hand.
Yeah. So I found this job through the government's Department for Work and Pensions. I saw it as an advert. I know most people my age probably wouldn't be looking in the Department for Work and Pensions, and I know word of mouth works a lot. I know obviously from the previous call, which I tapped into earlier today, they're talking a lot about word of mouth, but I know a lot of people who I know probably wouldn't be interested from word of mouth. I know people, but I don't know many people. So I don't know, maybe other ways to perhaps advertise Serve Legal. I know there's a lot of stuff on social media because I follow a lot of various social media, but there might, I'm not entirely too sure, but there might be some other ways to try to make it more accessible for young people at my age. I don't know if it's advertised at universities or whatever, but maybe just other ways to try and tap into auditors in my age group rather than maybe some of the online job stuff, because I know a lot of people my age wouldn't really be looking at that sort of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's really great feedback. And you know, it's actually part of my role a bit as well. And well, it's part of all area managers' roles. But kind of mine a bit more so actually to kind of be looking at new ways of recruitment. And so any ideas are always really helpful. Hopefully, like one way that we have always tried to encourage as well is that, you know, if you were to say share it amongst your volunteering group that you said, you know, other 18, 19-year-olds, as long as they use your name, you get a referral bonus. So like we have always tried to encourage that, you know, when people give us ideas about like, oh, have you tried doing this particular group? It's like, well, make sure that don't let me do that idea necessarily. It's great to hear the feedback, but you know, if you can post something yourself or something like that, then you might get 100 quid if all 10 people apply. So you know, kind of do bear that in mind. And you know, if you have ideas that you're happy to kind of do a bit of work on for us, then that's always great as well. But yeah, no, really good feedback. I think especially about where people are looking for, we probably do need to kind of bear that in mind more so than we do. Go on then, Carl.
Yeah, so just following on from Jacob's point there, I found out about Serve Legal through, I think it was Save a Student or like Student Saviour, one of these kind of websites. Yeah. So also that is more like a website there where you'd expect students to kind of find about this thing. But to be honest, it was kind of by chance. I was just procrastinating at the time, and I think the title of the article was like, "Do you want to get paid to go to the pub?" And it looked like a bit of a scam thing. It didn't look like it was legit. But I clicked on it because I think I was putting off an essay, and also read a bit more about it, and then found out that, you know, it was a legit organisation. But yeah, I think maybe I don't know if you advertise on Indeed at all. You know, I think generally these kind of websites are where students or young people flock to go and find jobs, like and that kind of stuff. Indeed, or I'm trying to think of, I think Glassdoor maybe. So that's probably one of the recommendations I'd say for in terms of getting the word out there. And there's something else. I had an original point I was going to say. Oh yeah, that was it. So I think so I was on a Skype call with my area manager and some other people in, I think it was maybe February, I think just before we got furloughed. So I did mention it there. I think possibly you said you're looking into it, so apologies if it's already on your radar. But you know, that kind of list of jobs online, like I had for my stock taking job, I think that would be very helpful for Serve Legal. Because like, you know, it's only a little bit more hassle to text back and forth your area manager to find out what jobs there are. But it's but particularly when like you kind of maybe know the area better than they do. It's just better to kind of have a look and see, you know, I could viably do that job in that amount of time, and you know, kind of I could do that one. Whereas when you're trying to, it's a bit of a hassle of the kind of back and forth with text. And obviously it's just a big thing to implement, but it's definitely something I would be interested in seeing implemented if you could.
Yeah, I think we've had reasons, not to say that it's not a valid point, because you know, it is definitely something that it's been discussed quite a few times, and I think there's definitely a place for it. The balance that we have to get is making sure, because one of the things that kind of our clients love is that we will get audits done in Guernsey and the Isle of Wight, and you know, and I'm sure as Scottish auditors you've had text about mad places that kind of asking you to try, is there any way that you can get to Oban or whatever else. Yeah, I think it's making sure that we can still get those harder ones done as well, and kind of share the workload. But I do think there's definitely a place for kind of having it more easy as well for us to share that with you. So even if it's not a way, you know, even if it's just that we can send you a more accurate list of information about what to kind of choose from almost, I do think there's definitely something in that. I can't give away too many details, but we are having a bit of a tech upgrade in the very near future. So yeah, there should be some amount of increased capacity to do a bit more with that, particularly in terms of the locations, and it should be, if nothing else, easier for area managers to see what kind of things are actually geographically closer, even if they're in a different postcode area and things like that. So yeah, exciting things to come. But yeah, that's definitely something that will be considered, and I'll make sure it's on kind of everyone's radar. And if nothing else, definitely we need to be making sure that auditors feel like they can ask for more information, and you said kind of go back and forth a bit with area manager, maybe kind of improve our communication in that way, if we can't kind of put it on in a formal way. I can't quite keep up with who raised hands at which point. I think it was Grace, then Henry, and then we'll go Rishi and then Jacob. So Grace?
Yeah, mine's kind of like a difficult point because I understand the legalities of it, but it is ever so frustrating that, because I'm 20 now, and
yeah,
I actually was only able to do Serve Legal for like 4 months because of when I found out about it. And it is like ever so frustrating because I remember I went into one shop one time and the person literally told me I looked 12. And I was like, well, okay, thanks. But also it is kind of annoying that it does cut off at age 20 when I am told that I get away with looking younger, but I can't still do it. It's like ever so frustrating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's definitely good feedback. I mean, one thing that's had kind of a bit of a pause, unfortunately, because of coronavirus, partly, I'm saying partly, and in quite a big way, is the amount of work that we've actually got for people over 20 as well. So that was kind of on the rise and kind of looking pretty promising. That was going to be where kind of things were going to increase really within the business, and hopefully that will kind of pick back up soon. But I do think it's worth, we can certainly kind of ask some questions about ways that we can make use of that. Particularly the main frustration for kind of area managers, because it's definitely in our interest to have it, is that people of that age might be more likely to have access to a car to get to do that more complicated audit, or kind of the circumstances that they're in might actually make them more suitable for certain bits of the work that we can still only offer to 18-19-year-olds. So definitely feedback to take on board, but fingers crossed there should be some more non-age restricted stuff coming not too shortly. Henry?
I understand that some of the area managers work part-time. For the ones that do, it would be quite useful if they advertise the hours which they work.
Yes.
Because sometimes there's quite a long delay in getting back, and I'm just wondering whether they're working those hours or not, and whether there's a out-of-hours contact if something's urgent, for example.
Yeah, great feedback. Out of interest, do any of you use the notice board kind of feature, or the newsfeed feature? How many of you kind of pay attention to that, do you think, when you log on?
By the notice board, do you mean the bit at the top that normally said online deliveries available, or like?
Yeah, probably just said that for about 3 months running, and then every so often, I've kind of so I actually manage that now, and like have done it so it's a bit more easy to edit things and put like multiple messages. Do you think something like that, in being more of a kind of focus point when you log in, would be more helpful? Kind of just thinking in terms of communicating things like hours and stuff like that. Dominic, were you going to say something related to that?
Yeah, just about the dashboard.
Yeah,
I'd have probably found it a bit more useful before the Facebook group was on. Like, I do see both things on there, the sort of things that you put on. So I've seen it before, or done it before, a lot of the surveys and things like that. But people who aren't on it, it's a really good thing. And certainly if I'm doing it without going on Facebook or clicking on the group, then having things on there like that would be really good. And maybe if you don't know, particularly if you're new, there's loads of documents around the briefs and everything, which if you're unsure or if you're new and don't really know how things work, they're great. So certainly things like hours, and I know it's constantly changing, but who's who, I must have about near to double figures now of Serve Legal contacts on my phone. I don't mind it because it's enough for people to deal with. You've all got things that are nice about you, which are great, and it's nice to mix it up. messages can get a little bit confusing, particularly when random names start popping up saying, can you detail, can you ask me that detail? So, just having that little bit more clarity. And I don't mind it because, I'm used to dealing with different types and I've got all the details on my phone and happy to talk about any bits of the audits that I do. But like for some people, that could be a little bit overwhelming and very confusing.
Yeah, for sure. I think, definitely making more use of that notice board might help so that people, if they get a text as well, like I've had a couple where they're like, sorry, can you just confirm, is this definitely a person from Serve Legal who have been contacted about getting free shopping delivered to my door? Because it doesn't sound right. And I'm like, it is actually right. But yeah, like our comms in that way as well, kind of so that people can even if they don't get in touch with a different area manager, can kind of still verify that, this is someone legitimate that they can be discussing kind of their address and, all things about where they live and stuff like that. That's completely fair enough and really good point. On to Rish. Oh, sorry, Henry, was it something to add in relation to the notice board or?
No, it was something else.
Okay, all right, we'll go to Rishi and then to Jacob and then back to you. Go on, Rishi.
There was a period, I think it was just before lockdown, when the notice board did have something saying over the weekend, if you have any issues, contact this person. That was really helpful.
I thought you were going to say it was completely wrong and it was wrong for hours, because that was me that left it, that forgot to change it.
No, I said it for a long time, and even the Who's Who got quite outdated, so I said, let's update that, and eventually it happened, and it's actually quite nice just to know who your area managers are. And again, as I think, was it Henry or Dominic saying that they have changed a lot, but that's fine. And I've got a stream of texts with one particular Serve Legal number, and it's just like, hi to this person, and then suddenly it's a different person all the time. But I think it's just useful to have someone out of hours, because I've had instances where something might just not be going to plan, or I might be stranded somewhere and wanting to know whether I can take a taxi. And sometimes when you ring, no one picks up, and it's a bit like, just hoping that it will be all right. But other than that, I mean, communication with area managers is like a really strong point of Serve Legal, I'd say, definitely.
And I think, we really feel like it is one of our strong points. It's something that we're quite proud of. So anything where we start to think, maybe that has dropped, like definitely over coronavirus, because of kind of people being on furlough and things, we're very aware that it's not the level that we want it to be. So it is really good to know that, it's something that auditors value. So it's definitely worth us kind of really trying to get that back now that kind of things are, hopefully a bit going to start to stabilise a little bit more with who's doing where and things like that. But there you go. I was just going to say, you've now got a list of loads of area managers that if something goes wrong, you can just ring round all of them and
you have those exact saying, hi, what was up? And you have to say, oh, don't worry, got it sorted.
Yeah.
The only other thing I was going to say was the portal for auditors. I mean, you said it's going to have a tech upgrade potentially, so it'll be nice to just be a bit more workable, just so that it's sort of easier to use and more just easier.
Yeah, definitely mobile versions as well. We're very aware that it can be a bit clunky, to put it kindly. So fingers crossed that'll be improving very shortly. Jacob, on to you.
2 quick points. Follow on for the point just made. I've noticed with the mobile versus desktop, on the mobile version, not all information gets displayed. So 9 times out of 10, I use my mobile rather than my tablet or a computer. Sometimes I've incorrectly visited a job because the information hasn't displayed on my phone. I've worked out how to get desktop mode on my phone, so I can now get all the information. But I know not everyone knows how to do that, so maybe just not all the the other point I was going to make was with the emails that we get, which I find very useful to kind of get sort of either a monthly or a every other week update. For some of the online delivery jobs, maybe a map might be useful. So one of the emails that came this week regarding some online delivery audits, it was in an area I usually audit in, but I don't live in. So I asked if I could do it. I was outside the catchment, but where my town is and where this other town is, they're sort of starting to merge. So I didn't quite know if I would fall into that catchment. I know on some emails in the past, there have been maps which have been useful. But I know it might just be useful for auditors to read this and say, okay, great, we've got this town or this city. Where's the city limits? Where's this sort of catchment area? So I can know whether or not I visit in, or if I know a friend who might live in that area, whether or not they fall on that catchment as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely try and do that in future. I'll definitely write that bit of feedback down. I know for that particular audit that you are referring to, we have had kind of a bit of limits on how much we can disclose in kind of openly about the catchment area. So that might have been the reason why. But that being said, even if that is the case, could we have pushed back more and said that this is actually vital for us getting it done? Probably. So, you know, if that's the kind of information that's really, really helpful and is going to make us do a better job and kind of give you guys more opportunities to help us out as well, particularly, then yeah, definitely something we can do more. And again, not to give too much away because I don't think I'm allowed. The mapping elements will be a lot better on the kind of system upgrade that's planning. Really hope this it happens now, because if not, you're all going to be gutted. Up to you, Henry.
Just a small point really about the emails. What would make it slightly easier just for our personal admin would be if we did have Serve Legal email address domains for the auditors, rather than, for example, I've done quite a few online audits recently, and now
sorry, Henry, it cut out for a minute there.
Etc. Which I'm interested in, but
sorry, Henry, it cut out for me there for a minute. I don't know if it's my Wi-Fi. Did yeah? Can you just say again, because I didn't quite catch it.
Just a small point really for the online delivery audits. It would be quite useful to have a Serve Legal email address for the auditors, just to make our personal admin a bit easier, rather than afterwards you get tons of emails from companies which I'm not particularly interested in, and just to make it all a bit more smooth, the audit process.
Yeah, or even if you can't do that, because I think there might be issues with you setting up an account with it clearly saying Serve Legal in it, because it might give the game away. Just in case, you know, because I know the type that you're referring to are actually under 18 kind of specific ones, and so you guys might not necessarily know. But with those ones, there is more kind of, you have to go back into the email and get extra information at a later point, don't you? So customer services at that company might be more aware of what email address you're using. I think it is a good point, though, that we should probably recommend that people set up their own kind of secondary email address. Like, I know I've got like a junk email address, which when I'm just signing up for like, I know, free stuff, then I just use that one. So kind of recommending that auditors do the same for that sake would be, yeah, definitely valuable, particularly now we're doing so many more onlines as well. Callum? Oh, sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was clicking something. I just want to quickly add to Henry's point there. Yeah, I would agree with the email address thing. I do end up getting a lot of these just, you know, promotion emails after I've done this. But there's one particular problem I had with a supermarket home delivery audit, and on the brief it said that you know, you're not allowed to collect loyalty points for this shop. But the problem was I had an account already, and so I could not collect loyalty points because it was already assigned to it was already linked to my account, and so that was kind of one of the issues there. But the other issue was I also wasn't allowed to create a new email to have like a junk email, because like my address was already registered. So when I used my name and address to sign up with a different email, it said, oh, you've already got an account. So I had to use my existing email. So that meant that, one, I had to collect the points, which, you know, I wasn't allowed to do the audit. And also, two, I did get all the junk emails afterwards. So that's just one of the unfortunate things that happened there. But it wasn't a massive deal, but I thought it was something that was just worth having in there, just for Henry said.
Again, we're doing more online, definitely worth us knowing about. And I think, yeah, definitely something that we can, again, push back on. Like sometimes some of the things on briefing documents are something that was agreed at the time when we first kind of started working with that client 4 or 5 years ago, possibly, and it's actually just no one's asked why that's still the case, rather than, you know, is that actually still relevant? Like, you know, so definitely ask those kind of things, but more regularly, because hopefully we can have more of these kind of forums, because I really enjoy putting them on, and I think there's a lot to be gained from them. But if on a more regular basis, let your area manager know, and they can generally like do something about it, or ask about getting something done, and it will probably take 2 months to actually go through in the end, but it will do something, and we are going to try and do more to kind of get feedback, because you guys are the ones that kind of really know all of these things. If we're not using these websites and things like that on a regular basis, then we won't know. Rishi, did you have your hand up on purpose, or was it from the previous time? Okay, no, that's all good. And Henry, back to you.
Maybe on the new portal which you're talking about, maybe have a little button which maybe says, is something wrong with this page? Because recently I found in a certain audit the visitor instructions, the postcode was wrong. So just to make that clear to the website, to the person who's responsible for doing that visitor information part of the audit.
That's a great shout, and as someone who's only fairly recently started to understand how a website is put together and things like that, I actually think, while you probably used to think that would be really complicated, it probably actually isn't too hard to just get a mail to kind of thing. So actually, yeah, that's definitely something that we could kind of cut out the area manager from that, when they don't necessarily need to be the one that's kind of communicating that, and we'll probably do a worse job of explaining it than you will directly. So that's a really good point. Callum, back to Callum, and then over to Jacob, I think. But
it was just about the news feeds. I actually hadn't noticed that in Scotland.
Sorry, it's breaking up a bit for me, Dominic.
Say again, sorry?
Oh, sorry, it's just breaking up for me, but you're saying about the news feed, but could you start over?
Yeah, sorry. So I was just saying that I actually hadn't noticed that exists yet. I just logged on just now to have a look at it. But I was thinking it was because I'm now 20 and live in Scotland, so I basically had no work for ages. I was wondering when that got added, and maybe I hadn't noticed that. But it's also... is that something that you kind of update manually, or is it through do you have an email and newsfeed client that you just put the information in and it kind of duplicates, or is it?
I've kind of found this method of doing it, so it's basically I can just update it a little bit more easily. But it's a manual thing in that I have to kind of make a little note to put something in, but it's very easy. It's really straightforward.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it now, and it says below it Wednesday, 8th of July. Was that when it's last updated, or is it just a kind of random? Was that when I last logged in? Maybe I'm trying to work that out.
Can't remember.
It says 16 days ago next to your name, but then at the bottom of it it says 8th of July.
Yeah, I'm not all that sure, to be honest. But that's definitely not when it was last updated, the 16th. It might just be when I kind of did this new way of doing it. But
I see, because I think maybe a good feature for that would actually to add a date when it was modified, because I'm just not having to go at anything, but I'm conscious today that I had an email saying we're online delivery audits, and then they're different from the ones that are currently on there. And that maybe be difficult, saying which one's which. So I'm not saying you have to, update it straight away, and that's not I'm going anymore. But I'm just saying if you maybe had a date on there, when it's last updated, it'd just be an easy way to tell which one is the best one to refer to.
That's a really good shout, actually. Yeah, especially if people are relying on it. Should we have one more from Jacob, and then we'll wrap up? I don't want to use up everyone's evening, so I don't want to. But it's all really great feedback. So definitely kind of communicate to me kind of individually, maybe if there's anything else. But over to you, Jacob.
I don't know the feasibility of this, but I know in the past when I've audited a couple of places, I've been asked for ID. I don't know if that would necessarily be my actual ID in terms of to prove I'm 18, or a serve legal ID. I know for some clients where we give a results letter, it's quite handy because it actually has an official paperwork. But I know some people who we speak to afterwards look a bit skeptical if you've just got me a random person flatter them. I don't know the feasibility of that, but it may. I know maybe for me personally, I don't know if anyone else, but might be just a bit of peace of mind. Maybe having a really sort of basic form of ID or something, just to sort of prove that I am working for Serve Legal rather than making it up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, more recently, this has been actually a bit of an issue in a kind of different context because of lockdown rules. We put out, you probably, if I remember sending it to you, Jacob, the letter of authorization to show that you can be out and about, like, not that we've had any issues yet, but just in case it was an issue with anybody kind of getting asked why they were out and about buying a bottle of beer and a Mars bar on a Wednesday afternoon. That is maybe something that we could just do as kind of a regular thing, so that if people want to have it for their own kind of peace of mind for things like that. But I guess there aren't that many times when that's relevant. But for where it is, definitely would be valid. No, great stuff to can take on board, and lots to think about. But it's really nice to know that kind of in general it's really positive, and these are all kind of really good constructive bits of feedback that we can take on board. Kind of just kind of final little wrap up thing from me, and do dash out whoever it was that messaged. I couldn't see. If you do need to go, just dash out if you need. That's fine. Final thing from me is I wrapped up my piece earlier about how I was working in recruitment, basically my journey then back into Serve Legal was I didn't really like recruitment, and I saw that Serve Legal happened to advertise a job on kind of Facebook, and I still happened to follow it. Though I hadn't really kind of stayed engaged that much with the company in that last year or so. But yeah, I interviewed and got offered the job, not even having completed all that many audits. Like, I wasn't an outstanding auditor that had loads to say. Like, I hadn't been able to do all that much. Since then, I was able to kind of get involved managing socials, company socials, so putting those together. I was managing a team of kind of people that work at the weekends who you've probably had bits of contact with, our ACs we call them, and and got to deal directly with clients. And now I manage our social media. Like, Serve Legal are a company that really want to invest in the people that kind of come through the company, and even at just auditor level, we see you as our workforce, and we really do like to kind of stay engaged with people, and not just for the nice reasons that we want to know how you're doing, but also because you are our best recruitment pool. Generally, you know what you're doing, so do bear that in mind. We talked a lot about kind of how you can make a casual job your kind of selling point on a CV to get things, but do also consider roles that Serve Legal might have that kind of are beyond auditor roles as well. The last thing is this was part of the Power of Youth Week. I don't know if any of you were involved, particularly those involved in youth volunteering and things, but there's some really good talks on there. You can find them all on Twitter or Facebook if you type the I Will campaign. Hashtag I Will Week, I think it's called. There's some really interesting talks on there, so just a recommendation that could check that out as well. Great, we'll leave it at that then, but thanks so much again for taking the time out, and all the best. See ya.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.